Hey guys, my name's Dan Bladen and I'm the co-founder and CEO at Chargify, and we're doing for power what Wi-Fi has done for connectivity, cutting that final cord and enabling a truly mobile workspace. I'm delighted to be joined this morning by Simone Fenton-Jarvis, who's Workplace Consultancy Director at Ricoh. Simone, great to see you this morning. How are things going over there?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me. It's really good. We're 11 weeks into lockdown, so it's interesting.
11 weeks, Groundhog Day. So
Yeah.
Simone, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're at Ricoh now. How did you get to Ricoh, and what does your job entail before COVID and now during COVID? What does it look like?
Yeah, so my background is facilities management, operationally kind of moving up from leisure centres through to residential property and then into commercial property, into the workplace more of the arena rather than facilities management. And I've been at Ricoh now for the last year, so moved over to become a consultancy director. So my job before COVID was very much making sure that we had people-centric environments that utilise technology to just make things easier for people.
Right.
So my job now, because of COVID, it's it's obviously been flipped on its head a little bit, but it's good in that all the things that we were doing before, I guess, have just become more relevant now. We don't really have to change anything that we're doing because.
So what were people picking up the phone, dropping you an email on before?
So before it was things like we're growing too quickly, we're running out of space,
Right.
our space is costing us too much money, our engagement scores are too low. We want to utilise more technologies. We just want to make sure that we're recruiting and retaining people. So it was about trying to create that workplace of a really good culture
Right.
that didn't just kind of look good, but was easy for people to use from a technology point of view. That processes were very kind of slick and streamlined for the people, but also for the business. And just ultimately making sure that people were at the heart of the workplace.
And why are Ricoh the guys to go to for that?
So I actually worked with Ricoh as a customer before I came over, and I was massively impressed with that approach of the speed, I guess, that the technologies that we're driving. Working with companies like Chargefy as well. The kind of we're at the cutting edge from a technology point of view, but we've got a very people-centric attitude. So we don't want to come at things from a very gimmicky point of view from a technology. It's easy to put the latest fad in an office,
Right.
been many before. So I think the beauty of it is we try to understand the people, and it's very people-centric design of the workplace.
Got it. Got it. So we're 11 weeks in, I think, as you mentioned, the UK. I think somewhat similar here in California. Have you noticed a change in, was there a pause to start with, for example? Or was there a rush to start with? Is there a rush now? Have you noticed a change in how people are thinking about the workplace over this period?
Yeah, I think for the first few weeks, I think obviously people were just wondering what on earth was going to happen next. I think it came to a massive shock to everybody. And I think now people have kind of got used to what's happening. They've started to now plan for the future. So the more conversations that I'm having now have moved past what do we do immediately to keep people working, but more into now what does the future look like?
Cool. So our audience are workplace managers, audio visual managers for meeting rooms, looking after hundreds, if not thousands of Zoom and WebEx meeting rooms. Would you be saying to people that are thinking about their return to the workplace strategy, perhaps over the next few weeks and months?
I think review how you worked before. Be very kind of critical of the way that people worked before, and use this as an opportunity to change the way that people are working. I think it's a really good opportunity to change cultures within organisations. Get people out of the office. There are many workplaces that are still 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and it's not always task orientated for that reason. It's often the culture. So I think anybody thinking what does the future look like, I think the key bit at the moment is that it's crucial that each organisation determines that for themselves ultimately. I
Right.
think there's been lots of trends. There's so much information on the internet around what that return to work looks like. I think it's crucial for companies to kind of ask the 5 whys, and really look at what the office is for in that organisation.
Come on, why number one? What's that?
Why are you in the office? Why do you have what's your work style, and why, I guess, ultimately is that number one.
Okay.
And then I guess number two, I'd go into more of the, what does the physical properties look like and why? And then same with technology, same with your processes, and just the culture element of where you're trying to get to and how do you want to get there? Why have you been trying to get there the way that you were trying before COVID? And I guess what's changed now about COVID in the workplace that you've got an opportunity to change your strategies moving forward, I guess.
Okay. Why number three?
Why number three? Depends what the answers are to the question.
Okay.
I think at that point I see what people say to the first couple of whys and then say, well, why that?
Got it. So what's accelerating? We've obviously been seeing a growth in unified communication, collaboration, a growth in free desking, agile working inside of an environment, and people, having their laptop, going from meeting room to meeting room, touching down on a free desk in between. As some kind of mega trends, what trends are you seeing accelerating, and what trends perhaps are you seeing reversing due to COVID, at least over the next few months?
Yeah, I think it's funny because, with a year ago or so now with GDPR, people started asking how data was being used in the workplace, what data was being collected.
Right.
And I think now, because of COVID, people have almost become a little bit more accepting that data is going to have to be collected. Right. Because track and trace element is going to ultimately keep them safe. So I think coming back into the workplace, we're seeing massive accelerations in the amount of thermal cameras that are being used on entrance to workplaces.
Yeah.
So there's I guess a few different types, but the type that will be the most accurate, it actually takes the core body temperature from the corner of the tear duct, as opposed to your temperature because you've just jumped off the tube and you're a little bit warm. So it's important that starts well, because otherwise,
Okay. So this is the first I've heard of this. So I'm going into an office. I'm to expect the corner of my tear duct's temperature to be measured. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, and of course, it needs to be done in a very non-intrusive way. But if I walked into the office to a camera being pointed at me to take my temperature, I think I'd be a little bit wary of that. But I think the way that you do that is, building them into visit management systems, for instance. It doesn't need to be as intrusive as, I guess we've seen in some other countries around the world.
Got it. So there's two really interesting points there. So number one, around security, I guess, of a space and a place and intrusiveness. One of the themes in the security world is, if you take the analogy of your house, do you have a big lock on the front door and the back door of your house, and then every door to every room unlocked inside? Or do you have just locks on every single door? How do you imagine that in a back to work, at least for the initial, let's say, 3 to 6 month period? Obviously, we've seen in Asia thermal temperature checkers at the front of buildings, but then also I've seen pictures of canteens and cafeterias with mini walls up across the dining table, so that people can't even see each other whilst they eat. How do you see that dynamic playing out?
I think it's, getting into the nudge behaviours. What nudges can we put in the workplace to trust people to be responsible and have that adult to adult kind of relationship, rather than putting tape, perspex screens, and things that you would almost do to try and control a child in a workplace. Right. Actually, if you're going to get your people back into workplace, let's give them sound, clear guidance and trust them to follow it. Put themselves and others at risk. I think that will be the best way to do it in a culture. I think that idea of mini little locks, things like, desk booking systems, using information and the technology to track what areas people have been in. So, if I've been in a meeting room with 5 other people, And yeah, okay, I might have been a couple of meters away from him, but then if I got diagnosed, you could then go back to the other 4 people, 5 people, and just say, you should probably go and self-isolate because you were in close proximity with Simone. And I think just having that kind of transparency of data and trusting people. And I know many organisations are thinking my staff just wouldn't behave like that.
Right.
But I think this is where, if you're thinking you might going to be putting perspex screens and things up in a workplace, then maybe you're just going back too soon.
Interesting. So high trust and putting that trust in people is really interesting. What you're kind of getting at there is, and it's something we've been talking about internally and with customers, is that we've actually seen customers not move as fast as we thought in terms of some of their back to work strategies, as they hunt for kind of a silver bullet to solve all problems. And I'm just not sure that that's going to be what happens. I almost see it like a fishing net where you've got several holes and you need to patch the several holes in different ways rather than just one new super patch, as it were.
Yeah.
I can't see a silver bullet right now. I can just see lots of different ways that can all play a part in helping that back to work.
Yeah, because you could say the silver bullet was we're all in lockdown. Let's try and stop this, and obviously we've still seeing increases all around different countries. So I think the silver bullet is probably not going to be it's not going to be in existence. I think a few weeks ago I actually had this crazy idea at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, like you do, and I got my notepad out and started doodling that return to the office and what that could look like.
Right.
Almost started thinking, right, that customer journey into the office, what aspects are going to need to be looked at. So I started, doodling away and writing all these things up. And I guess that's what we've done. It's all these like small steps to get people not just feeling, not just being actually safe in the office, but feeling safe in the office. So, that little nudge behaviours of we're looking after you, it's safe to be here, as long as you follow these rules. There's a big difference, I think, turning up to a workplace to a visit management system that takes your temperature and turning up to a workplace to a receptionist that's behind a perspex screen with a mask on. And just it's a different type of welcoming, I guess.
Yeah, I wonder if there's going to be a shift in the sense of entitlement and now forgiving and also acceptance, humility that we've seen across all levels of society, I think, throughout this period. Whether that translates into the workplace as well. There's been a really fine line, and we've discussed this with other guests, if you want to call this on this show, I don't know if this is a show, but on this webcast, we've discussed this fine line between personal identifying information or identifiable information on one hand, and then on the other hand, personalized, unlocked experiences, workflow automations. And at Chargify, we like to think that there is an exchange, and there can be an exchange between letting somebody know potentially where you are if you take a certain level of software, but that not happening passively all the time in the background, that only happening when you want to trigger, let's say, a workflow. So one of the most successful inside sales campaigns we've run at Chargify has been in the last 2 weeks, where we've been talking about touchless meeting rooms, putting your phone down on a charging spot, recognizing you and logging you into your Zoom meeting without having to touch any equipment inside of the meeting rooms. And we've heard of customers, I don't know if you're familiar with Formula One racing drivers, what they do with their helmets, where they peel off different plastic layers off of their helmets if they get flies or debris on their helmet visor. And I've heard customers saying, we're going to put that over the screens that we touch to start meetings inside of meeting rooms. And you pull one off and discard it in between meetings. How do you tread that fine line at Ricoh, and how do you think about it, Simone, that personal identifiable information / heightened experiences?
Yeah, I think it's all in the communication. I think if you communicate with your people around why it is you're collecting information or tracking certain elements, and really kind of saying this is what we're using it for, and being very open and upfront about it, that's very different to then somebody finding out that you've been tracking what meeting rooms that they're actually going into. I mean, the thing is as well is that there's been this drive, I guess, of when we all return back to the workplace, you know, we're going to be followed around the office because people are going to want more and more data about us. I think the ironic thing is that organisations would always have had that data anyway. We know from where people are on the meeting room calendars, or if they're at their desk and where their, you know, laptop is being logged in. You can see where people are already moving. We know where, you know, from fob systems when people are moving from between different floors and things like that. So I don't think that people should be too kind of paranoid about this. I think it's obviously about keeping people safe. And I guess there's certain elements around the world where data is being used. You know, there's a lot of cybercrime increases as well now, and I think it's about making sure that organisations are communicating to their people around why that data is being collected in the first place and how it's being used.
And so this is perhaps moving into the philosophical, but
Yeah.
I guess what you're really saying is treating people like adults and explaining very clearly what's going on. But it's interesting as we see Apple, Google, in addition to different national governments, building applications or making parts of core mobile frameworks available to developers to do contact tracing, for example. But you opt in if you've been infected, as it were. It may be that extra data coverage or more clarity about what data is being protected may not be seen as something that's harming you or harmful to you. It may be seen as extra cover here.
Yeah. And I always go back to I remember a few years ago where there was a rise in CCTV cameras in public spaces. I remember people thinking, oh, we're being watched. And I think my comeback was, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, then what are you bothered about? Because what difference does it make? And I guess, you know, there's different attitudes to take to it. And I think if it's there for a safety element, then again, that for me, if someone wants to collect data to keep me safe and use it in the right way, I'm happy with that. But it does require that element of trust.
Yeah, and keeping it safe, as you say, as well, keeping the data that's collected safe as well. Flexible working has been a mega trend over the last few years. Some are saying hot desking and open spaces will be looked back on as 20th century design's the biggest mistake. I don't know if it's quite that bad. I read a report earlier that was saying that open desking and open planned offices, there's an increase in people that actually are off sick because of outside of COVID times, that generally more people are sick in open plan offices versus the normal corner office, etc. Are you going to see that change? Are we going to see that change in the coming few months, then in the coming few years?
I hope the change that comes in the future is we almost have that workplace discussion without saying, oh, it's the open plan office point, like it's their fault kind of thing. Because I think ultimately an open plan office it's not the space that's the problem. It's because the space has been designed wrong for the people that are using it. And I would argue that any open plan office, as long as the air filtration and there's biophilia in there, and you know there's that fresh air coming in, and people are sanitizing it and all that, there's no reason why an open office should be more, you know, have more germs in it than any private office. Ultimately, I think the hot desk and flexible working element, I think, is what we will see a change in, is that we have to more have on-demand bookable spaces. Rather than people just coming out of a room and just sitting where they want. I think it will have to be that control measured, because ultimately it's going to have to be cleaned in between uses. I think, you know, the increase in technology to do that is definitely on the rise.
So when you think we'll be back, what's it going to look like in the UK, for example?
Yeah. So I guess I foresee somebody getting told to kind of go, the office is open, come back when you want. That is the ideal. It's not the office is open, you must now risk your life on the tube to get to the office. The tube's bad enough any day. But I think, you know, it's the come back to the office, it's open when you're ready. You know, do you need anything if you want to continue to work at home? Do you need anything to stay working at home? And communicate with us. Here's a phone app, download it. And when you're ready to come back to the workplace, just pop onto it. and you can book a desk, and you come into the office, and is all we ask is you sign in as normal, but there may be a thermal camera image taking your temperature to make sure you're safe and you're not going to also infect other people. You go into the office environment, there's hand sanitizers, again, just them little small control measures, and you sit at the desk that you've been booked into. I can't foresee I can't see face-to-face meetings happening for quite a while. I think they will remain virtual. I think even, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some meetings where individuals were logging on to Zoom in the same office and having a conversation in that way to avoid that face-to-face, because I do think people will be quite wary for some time.
Interesting. What are you missing? What are you most looking forward to about getting back?
I miss my team. I don't work in an office. I've not got a set location, but I usually see my team, at least every couple of weeks. I'm a bit of a digital nomad, so I just kind of bounce between home, Ricoh offices, the coffee shops, and customer offices and things as well. So I think for me, I'm missing my customers, I'm missing my team. Just the bit that I love doing about my job is you walk into a workplace and you can feel the culture, and I think that's the bit that I'm looking forward to getting into some offices and feeling again.
Great. And last question, and I have to ask this: as a digital nomad and in a post-COVID world, how might Chargify and wireless charging play a role in that space and time?
I mean, it's playing a point. I'm sat here and I've got my phone on a wireless charging point, even just sat on a Zoom call at home. And I think it's that ease that it's just so easy to just pop your phone down while you're doing something like this and give it a quick boost and then carry on with your day, rather than where's my charger, where have I left it, and I better go and plug it in. And it's Chargify in a digital nomad world. I'm looking forward to when Chargify have points on all trains. I think that will be my absolute utopia.
Yeah.
To have a wireless laptop where I just sit on a train and put my laptop down, and I don't have to think, oh, I better not start this proposal because actually my battery's going to go within the next half an hour. So, getting out of them habits that you have to find yourself into of, before I leave the house, is everything in my possession charged? Headphones, laptop, 2 phones. We've got to be, as a society, get better infrastructure like this to enable people to work wherever they can and how they want to.
Simone, super helpful tips. Great insights. Thank you for spending the time with us. How can people find out more about what you're up to at Ricoh?
You could follow me on LinkedIn, so Simone Fenton-Jarvis. And also on Twitter. So if you just use the Twitter handle @ChiefWorkplace.
Amazing. Thank you, Simone. Take care. Godspeed.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.